The glittering world of the pop industry, where stars can seemingly be born overnight. Isn't it so magical? What if I told you behind the catchy tunes and the bright lights lies a world full of secrets they don't want you to know? I go by the name Razor University. Welcome back to the channel. The pop industry, as I'm sure most of you guys know already, at its core is just a huge business, riddled with a bunch of older men in suits behind some of your favorite artists. Pop stars are heavily marketed and molded by record labels to fit a specific image or sound that will appeal to the masses, popularity and all that. The lack of artistic freedom many artists face with their creative input being overshadowed by the label's commercial interests, which honestly is a sad thing that happens all the time. You take these new and upcoming talented people and force them to be put into a box that most of the time they don't fit, just to reflect the interests of a music label. You essentially make them into people they aren't, just to sell music. It's crazy and mind-boggling. Billie Eilish described it perfectly when she was talking to Genius a couple years ago, and I feel like this was a pretty good representation of what I'm talking about.
There's an artist, and we want to make this artist a star. We want to make her blah, blah. And it's like, okay, the way you're gonna do that is have someone else write the song, someone else style her to look like somebody else that she's not. Like, put a ton of makeup on her that she doesn't freaking look like herself in. Like, just like all these artificial things that involve like so many people.
The pop industry is definitely not nice to these emerging young artists at all. Most of the time, they're exploiting them in every way possible. Artists are pressured into maintaining grueling work schedule, resulting in burnout and mental health struggle. While there are more recent examples of this today, I want to go back into the early 90s and talk about one of the biggest artists, Mariah Carey. Mariah had an incredibly weird introduction into this industry, thanks to a man named Tommy Mottola. Mariah Carey was 18 years old when she met 39-year-old Tommy, the head of Sony Music at the time. He would go on to sign her on one condition, just one, you guys. She had to ditch her collaborator, Ben Margulies, because he suspected Margulies was her boyfriend. Mottola controlled who Carey worked with, what songs she sang, and when she worked, which was, all the time. In Mottola's book, Hitmaker, he claims that it was Carey who began flirting with him. He adds that it was an absolutely wrong and inappropriate thing for me to do, becoming involved with Mariah Carey. But he did it anyway. When they married in 1993, it's alleged that Mottola kept her locked away in his mansion, which Carey called Sing Sing, referencing the New York prison. Years later, reflecting on what Carey describes as an emotionally and mentally abusive marriage, she would say this: "I longed for someone to kidnap me back then. I used to fantasize about that a lot." Label executives exploiting young impressionable artists. It's a tale as old as time, as you guys should know at this point, but still very sad to hear. Another thing I find sad to hear is ghostwriting and the lack of true credit in the pop industry. This seriously happens way too much that we gotta talk about it. This industry has people actually writing massive records, billions of views with no name credit or compensation at all. It boggles my mind that this still happens today, but it does. Like, for example, a funny one to mention, because sometimes people don't know this and it blows their mind. If you listen to Alicia Keys, her record Unthinkable, you can clearly hear Drake's background vocals in the song, but the Canadian isn't credited on the original record at all. I just found that very weird, and I still don't know to this story why that happens. But again, Drake was still a pretty big artist, and it happens to him, so it can happen to anybody. The next part isn't uniquely a problem of the pop industry, but a problem nonetheless. Pop stars are some of the most criticized human beings on the planet. In media and blogs and magazines, everywhere on the internet, you could easily find some sort of criticism towards a pop star. You wouldn't have all your brain cells if you thought that wasn't taxing on the artist at all. Jokes aside, the mental health toll that the pressure of fame and constant public scrutiny and social media backlash can take on an artist, it's immense, it's massive, it's something that can destroy a person, like we've seen many times before. There's so many examples of this, I don't even have to mention them, you already know. It came straight to your head, didn't it? But I mentioned this earlier, the pop industry is just a huge business. So can we talk about how most labels are robbing stars and musicians blind? Stars are locked into contracts that give them a very small percentage of their earnings compared to what the label is getting. The financial benefits of an artist's success often disproportionately goes to the industry executives rather than the artists themselves. Just look overseas at the K-pop scene, celebrated globally for its vibrant music, elaborate choreography, and captivating artists. But secretly, it masks a shadowy underworld rife with financial exploitation, physical and mental abuse, pervasive corruption. Many K-pop idols are bound by long-term contracts, often referred to as slave contracts, that can last up to 13 years. These contracts disproportionately benefit entertainment agencies, with idols receiving minimal income after deductions for training, accommodation, and other expenses. This financial exploitation leaves many artists struggling despite their apparent success. While we see them looking, look like they have a bunch of money, but oftentimes this is wrong. This is farther from the truth often. This financial exploitation leaves many struggling despite their apparent success. While this is a very normal thing in this scene, many K-pop artists are terrified to even speak about it in fear of losing the contract, which thus could end up losing any money they actually have currently. Even Taylor Swift has had to deal with problems like this. Back when Taylor Swift made headlines when her former label, Big Machine Records, sold her master recordings to a third party without her consent. Like, she didn't know at all that her masters were being sold. Crazy. Swift has been vocal about the lack of control she had over her own work and has since taken steps to re-record her earlier albums. This issue has sparked a broader conversation about artists' rights to their master recordings and the importance of artists owning their own music. Her former label obviously showed little to no care about her craft or her as a person. To do something like that, it's honestly shocking and sad. As much as we love the music and the artists that bring it to life, it's important to remember the struggles and sacrifices that go behind the scenes. The pop industry may seem like all glitz and glamour, but it often comes at a price we rarely see. So next time you listen to your favorite song or watch a live performance, think about the story behind the melody. Let's continue to support artists not just for their music, but also for their right to create freely and fairly. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure you like, share, and comment your thoughts on the industry's hidden truths. And don't forget to subscribe for more content where we uncover what's really going on in the world of entertainment. Until next time, stay curious.